This is an example from the University of Georgia. Several years ago, my organization, we got interested in the attempts to recreate 1918 influenza, which killed between 1% and 2% of humanity. So it was an incredible pandemic. In about 18 months was all it took. And the initial experiments to recreate, they didn't recreate the full flu, but they recreated a flu that contained the key parts that confer the virulence. Were done at the Poultry Research Lab here in Athens, the first experiments. And naive guy that I was at the time, I wrote, and they said, well, it's the University of Georgia Institutional Biosafety Committee that would review that, even though it happened at the USDA facility. I said, all right. Wrote the University of Georgia. I said, can I have your committee meeting minutes from when your safety committee reviewed these experiments to ensure that they were done properly? Well, the Biosafety Committee of the University of Georgia hadn't met in years, and they couldn't produce any minutes. And University of Georgia is not alone. I mean, I found this situation again and again across the country. I lobbied and finally forced the Utah State University to hold a biosafety committee meeting. It was the first one they'd ever held, even though for years they had been submitting paperwork to the National Institutes of Health with a list of committee members and their CVs. And the staff of the committee was nice enough to give the committee members a list of about 45 projects that the committee allegedly had already reviewed and approved before it had ever met. And this is the kind of thing, so when I write that the IBC system is in a catastrophic shambles, I mean it. I mean, there are a lot of committees across the country that just are only on paper, if that. In the case of Georgia, they've made some efforts to reconstitute their committee. It's too early for me to tell how well they're going to do in doing that. I think the point that I would make is that, flu didn't escape, so, but the point that I would make would be that if the institution won't convene a biosafety committee meeting for experiments to recreate what was perhaps the deadliest germ on Earth, which had been eradicated. It was gone. It was nowhere. We're recreating it for reasons that we won't get into that. That's a whole other thing. But if they're not going to convene a biosafety committee meeting when they're going to do that, then how could this committee really be described as being effective and in charge? I don't think that it was. And so that institutional control, the federal government says that that's supposed to be the institutional control, it wasn't there.